So, welcome everyone. We got the Jeep completely back together, and by that we got oil and everything in it. No leaks so far. With the RTV that you use on the oil pan, they tell you to wait 24 hours for it to cure. So, it's the next day, and we let it cure. Anyway, last video we talked about moving to Utah, which has spurred all this maintenance. These are just little things that I should have done a long time ago, but really, I may not have space to do it efficiently, and so I'm trying to get as much of it done now, so I don't have to do as much just maintenance items up there. One of those being today, though, we're going to try to accomplish two things, and we're going to go over it. One is I installed rock sliders years ago. You guys have seen them on my Jeep. I didn't do an install video because it was before I was doing this. But one thing I failed to do, and I haven't done, is seal the rock sliders so that water doesn't leak inside the Jeep when it rains. Now, it's a very small amount, just enough to get the carpet near the doorway a little damp. It doesn't get a lot of water in there, and it's only when it rains for an extended period of time. Now, out here where I live in the desert, we get a very small amount of rain, so it never really happens. It only happens if it manages to rain for a full day or so. Which is rare out here, so that's why I never did it. However, moving to Utah, I suspect that will not be the case, and it'll be raining quite a bit more. So I want to go get those filled up. Also, we're going to take a look at fluid film, and today's the day we're going to try to undercoat most of the Jeep, but we're going to leave one thing not coated, and that's the front axle area, because we're going to change out those bushings with metal cloak bushings. So stay tuned for that video as well. That'll be coming next. So anyway, without further ado, let's get all set up. Let me get some sealant for these, and we'll start taking it apart and putting sealant in places. I'm also going to inject, I'm going to take out a few of the bolts. The way the TJ's designed, there's some areas where you have to use nut certs on these particular rock sliders because you can't get a bolt all the way through. And so for those areas, we're just going to take out a bolt, and then we're going to put some fluid film in there just cause, I guess. No real rhyme or reason for it. But anyway, let's go ahead and get to it. Okay, so here are the rock sliders. Now the area I'm most concerned about is right here. Right here goes all the way through the body onto the interior of the Jeep. And there's a big old backing plate on the back side of this. So these aren't sealed enough to stop a little bit of water ingressing on the inside of the Jeep, and so we're going to take care of that. The other place we're going to take care of is on the back corner behind the door. We're going to take one bolt out there and squirt a little bit of fluid film in there with a straw, and then the other spot is going to be up here because there's actually a pocket in there that this bolt goes into, and you can't really get into that pocket. And honestly, I mean, I don't really think that Utah really has that many salt issues if you keep the vehicle washed. I'm just doing this just because I have it and just because we can. And the fluid film is pretty cheap. And I'll show you exactly the can I'm talking about, and I'll give you a link to what I bought. It's like 50 bucks for 6 cans. I think 6 cans is more than enough to do this vehicle. And I'm not going to do the interior panels all the time. I'm just going to do it this time just because I'm pulling kind of things apart. Mainly, though, I think on the frames, because I do rock crawl and off-road, spraying fluid film on the frame and undercarriage will only help. It won't hurt. And at 50 bucks a year, if that is even the cost, I may only use 3 cans on it. I don't know. We'll find out. If that's it to help protect the body, that's good for me. Body and frame anyway. That's good for me. I think that's worth the price. But again, I don't think the salt is really that much of an issue up there as long as you keep your vehicle cleaned. It seems that most people, after visiting up there a few times, I don't really see people running around with really crusty vehicles. Anyway, so without further ado, I got to get some tools out, and then we'll get to it. Alright. So for this, I'm just going to use clear, it's like window outdoor, stays flexible caulking. Probably don't need a whole lot of it, so this tube's probably good size. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do one bolt at a time. I think it'll be easier if I do one bolt at a time. Alrighty, so let's get to this. Okay, so now that this is done, we're going to go ahead and do the fluid film on this side. Let me grab a bottle and then I'll show you exactly what we're going to do and why. Okay, so this is fluid film. I've never used it before, but everyone seems to rave about how good it is. I'm really curious to see how it sprays on and how well it goes in holes. There's a little adapter they make with a big long hose you can stick into things. I'm just going to use the straw because that's what it came with. I think I paid $50 for 6 cans, so it's like $7-8 a can, something like that, from Amazon, and 2-day shipping, all that stuff. I'll leave a link below. Of course, prices probably change and all that stuff, but as it stands, like it's like 50-something bucks for a few cans. So basically, what we're gonna do is on the TJs, there's a pocket here, and there's a pocket back there. And I'm just gonna show you on this one. And then the rear is the same exact process. Anyway, okay, so let's see how the stuff comes out. Ooh, well, it comes out quick. Okay, it doesn't smell bad. It's actually kind of slippery. Let's just do a spot right here. It was very runny. It actually says it never dries, so I imagine it hardens a little bit though. I mean, it's definitely got a coating on it. You know what we'll do, while we're doing this, we'll just put a little bit right here. We'll just kind of let that dry while we're working on everything else. Okay, so I'm just going to spray it in here. I can't really see what I'm doing. This is where that tip that you can order would be awesome because it's got like a fan on it. You can shove it in there and it sprays like all directions. I'm just kind of spraying until I think it's coated. I'm pretty sure it's coated by now. The gap isn't that big in there. It's like that. What we could do actually is we could pull this bottom bolt out. And I guess we could put a light in there and see if we see anything coming out. Alrighty, so here is the borescope, and well, the head doesn't quite fit in there, so but you can barely see. You can see the shiny coating back up in there, so it's in there. There's just really no other way to get up in there. But all I want is a coating in there. I'm sure it'll slosh around and move around in there if it never dries. Awesome. Okay, let's put these, actually for good measure, you know what? Let's do that. Might as well, right? Okay, let's do the back now. Okay, so now we're at the back part. This is the back tire right here. Oh yeah, you can actually kind of see it bubbling in there. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let's see what we see down here. Oh, big thing in the way. Oh, you can still see it shining back there. I don't know if you guys can see that on the camera, but yeah, so it's back there. So for good measure, we're just gonna hit it with that, and then hit these bolts on the outside, or these threads on the outside anyway. Thinking about it now, and that spray tip where it sprays everywhere would be really nice in these spots. Huh. Look at this. This clip just straight up fell off. Looks like that. Yep, the bolt came loose. Interesting. I'm surprised it hasn't fallen off earlier, actually. Okay, we'll have to put that back on. Anyway, okay, so we have this whole side done. And now I'm going to do the other side. And then we'll be back. Okay, so we're back on the driver's side where we were first working, where we sprayed that little bit of thing. I will say that it's interesting what it did. It definitely cleaned the my paint on the rocker here really well. For those of you that don't know, this is a duplicolor bed armor. It's actually held up pretty well. I was hoping that it would be... Actually, I was hoping that this would be not as slick, so when you stepped on it. So that's not the case, but it still looks nice, and it complements the fender as well. Anyway, let's see what this looks like. So, okay. So it's definitely thickened up. It's not as runny as it initially was, but it's still quite oily. I would say it's like a thicker motor oil when you put it between your fingers. It's very interesting. It seems the lighter you get it, the more it tends to stick. It doesn't really like drip. It just kind of hangs out there. Interesting. I'm wondering if you let it sit for a while, if it eventually will set up and become more like a... It feels more like a wet wax. I mean, that's what it's supposed to be like, but... Interesting. Okay, so it's windy outside right now. I don't want to spray this stuff in the garage and get the garage all fumed up. We're going to wait a little bit and see if the wind dies down. If it does, we're going to crawl into this thing and start spraying. So we'll come back then. Alright guys, so we're done with all that stuff. It's pretty windy outside, but what we're going to do is we're going to try to do a light coat of that fluid film underneath the Jeep. So I've got gloves, I got eye protection, I've got a respirator. It says it's non-toxic, but I imagine you still don't want to be breathing it. So that's what we're going to do. So let's get to it. Let's see what happens. Okay, so that wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was. With the can that you saw me fill those holes with, it took about 2 cans, but I stayed away from the front axle, and the last can has a little more in it. I'm not doing a super thick coat, but I'm doing coat enough that you can, you can definitely see that it's there. So we'll see if that's thick enough or not. The reason I didn't do the front axle is because we got a project on it. We're going to install metal clip bushings in the front, and I actually just got them in, so the next video will be installing those. Like I said before in a previous video, the reason I'm doing this stuff now is to prep it for Utah. I know it's the summer, but if I get a coat on it now, at least I can play with it, just because I have it. So I'm thinking for a Jeep about 3 cans if you're going to spray it by hand. I know they have a gun and like a bucket. I think it's like a 1-gallon jug, and supposedly that stuff's thicker, but you need a compressor to do it or a airless system to do it. I could have bought that, but it's quite a bit more expensive than these cans, and I figure with the Jeep being as open as it is, as long as you get the critical areas that water may not be able to wash the salt away, it'll at least provide a little bit of protection. So there's that. Anyway, guys, there's the video. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you like what's going on the channel, hit subscribe down below. And if you have any questions or comments about this, definitely hit me up down below. Really, I mean, this is the first time I've ever used it and won't know how it works until next year, but I will definitely give an update after the salty season that we go through to see if it helps or not, or what happens to it. Alright guys, well, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the video.